Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. I hope you've been having a great weekend. So we're going to be telling you some of the top shelf stable foods that you can put back in your pantry today. But first, I want to bring this to you. This is something that just come out. This is some research that's being released to the public now. If you remember back when all this pandemic mess started, they were doubling down on this vaccine that everything was safe. There was not going to be long-term side effects. It turns out in 2020 they knew that there could be, because they actually knew about the myocarditis that can happen from taking an mRNA vaccine. That was something that showed up in the preliminary testing, and they went ahead and pushed it out on the market anyway. So now what we're seeing is young adults and also 50s and up, especially in the male population, are having this inflammation of the heart, causing cardiac arrest, causing long-term damage and things like that within their bodies as well, and killing a lot of people. Now, we were assured that this thing was safe, there would be no long-term effects, if you remember right. Turns out they lied. Why would we say that they lied? Because they knew about it in 2020, back when Fauci was up there talking about trust the science. We're telling you the truth. This is perfectly healthy. Nothing bad's going to happen. And other people are saying, wait a minute, this is something new. We need to discover if there's going to be some long-term side effects. Well, can you trust the science? Not the way that they present it, because they're going to hide the data that they don't want you to hear. Now, I understand Dr. Fauci made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of this vaccine stuff. That's why people get into these types of research where they tweak these viruses and things like that. That's what they do. Gain of function, come up with gain of function. They already have some ideas of how to fight that virus, and that's why you don't see him on the scene anymore. Back when he started catching a lot of flack from the Senate and stuff, what ends up happening, he just drops off the scene. Doesn't have to answer for his crimes, and that's exactly what he has committed, is crimes against humanity. I don't care what anybody says. That's the facts. That's what's coming out in this research. So, you take it for what it is. Down here, we had some issues when we were looking at when this first started coming up. Coming from a background working in industrial settings, and most settings worked at was food processing plants, where they process a lot of food that you eat, that I eat, and that go overseas as well. Having seen what was happening with the COVID and all that, and how people were missing work, being laid off from work if they didn't follow the mandates and all that mess, it was kind of pretty obvious where we were headed as far as food shortages and stuff in the future. And then we ended up with the Ukraine war kicking off, and these gas prices going up, and all this other mess stuff that's been happening. Now, understand, all that's not just tied to COVID or to the Ukraine crisis. A lot of that's tied to the crap leadership we have in office right now. That's just what it is. We're going to call it for what it is. I've never tried to hide the truth from you on this channel. We're not going to start now. But it does contribute to it as well. But I could see pretty quick that, we're probably going to have some food shortages, so really need to get going on the prepping, because at the very least the prices of the food are going to come up, and then you add inflation on top of that, and that's definitely what we've seen happening within the last year, really here heavy in the last 6 months. It's going to continue into next year is what we're being told. So we're going to start posting up some of these clips for you that's going to give you some ideas of what you can put back in your food. I know that writing's kind of small, so we're going to expand that and blow that up right here. That way you can see that a little better. But we're going to be talking in the background while you read that. So what can you do to try and get food security? Well, first things first, obviously we know to buy food and things like that, but something else that I wish more people would have done is to be more vocal when they see kids going around, and we're talking about the elevator button lickers, okay? If you're trying to figure out why you call someone an elevator button licker, well, down here in Florida, we had issues with people coming down from New York and other areas, and they had what they called the COVID challenge, which is where they were licking on the buttons inside elevators. They were licking on doorknobs. They were licking on door handles. They were licking on anything they could get their tongue on. And now understand, these are the people who are voting these elections, and they keep voting for these people that were scratching their head going, why would anybody vote for them? The AOCs of the world, the Babylon Bidens of the world. Well, the reason they vote for them is because, hey, they just go, the old people don't want him in there, so we're going to make sure we vote for that person, because they don't understand anything. You can talk to anyone that's in college today. Most of them don't even have a basic history of how the United States come into exception, when it became the United States, or any of that information. They don't know anything. Most of them don't even know that there's 50 states within the United States. There's not 52. There's not 54. There's 50. That's what people need to understand. But these people are the ones that are voting. But if you remember back, maybe it was happening in your area, maybe it wasn't, but it was kind of headline news there for a while. There were people going around, and I'd seen it myself, these kids coming in, they were coughing on food. And we're talking fruits and vegetables that are not in containers that could be easily washed. They're coughing on food like they're sick. They come up and start hacking on everything and all that. Well, down here, when we see people doing that, we were one, telling them to stop, also get management involved to get them kicked out of store, because, hey, you know what? It takes people to bring that food from the field to the store, and if you start throwing a bunch of food away, because they had to throw it away, mind you, they couldn't just go and wash it off, they had to throw it away. That's what the mandate and all. You toss it, you throw that stuff away. So we ended up wasting a lot of food in this country because of stupid little pranks and stuff that they would do on the internet for the little TikTok videos and stupid stuff like that. Now, I'm not trying to be mean, but this generation, I don't understand them at all. Working as a manager out at an amusement park, I thought, hey, this would be a pretty cool summer job, be something to take my mind off stuff and just have some fun. But what I ended up running into is people, they would have one friend holding a phone, recording them, and they would just, one would be sitting in a chair and the rest of us sit there and just smack the crap out of the back of their heads, because apparently it was a TikTok challenge where you let someone smack the crap out of you and you had to guess who it was. No, I don't know exactly when that seemed like it was going to be a good time or fun or anything, but understand that people do stupid stuff to get attention, and the more attention that you as a viewer give them for that type of stuff, the more often or not they're going to do it, and it has long-term consequences. Not just the brain damage from them smacking each other around in the head. It probably didn't do that much damage. I think they're pretty brain dead anyway. But, that's just kind of what we're seeing in society. And that's what we're seeing happening with our news media. They come out and they'll push a narrative, and then a year or two later it comes out that, hey, you know what, they were lying. They knew they were lying. The researchers knew that the information they was given wasn't exactly 100% accurate. Just like with the COVID stuff, with the myocarditis, that our mRNA vaccine actually causes inflammation of the heart and can kill you. I don't know if you remember here just a few months ago, there was a female wrestler who went and got her boosters and all this other stuff. Want to make sure she was ready to go for the match. Perfect health, then dies from myocarditis. Kind of interesting stuff. Now, it is rare for that to affect women, but it is not unheard of. So how is it not unheard of? Because they've been tracking the long-term effects of this stuff, and really it's not even a long-term effect. That's a short-term effect. You start looking at long-term effects 5-10 years down the road. Be interesting to see what's going to happen here in the days ahead with those who went and got that. Now, people might be saying, well, you sound like you're talking, like you don't believe in getting that stuff. Well, it's not like taking a flu shot, which is a weakened flu vaccine, or a weakened flu virus that's put into your body. So your body can catch it and, adapt, make all its adjustments stuff. The immune system, this overwrites your immune system. That is what mRNA does. I know the media and the politicians say, no, that's not what it does. Well, if you read the Pfizer, Moderna stuff, that is exactly what it does. So why are we seeing that there's actually this increase in sickness? Is this not even COVID related this year? Well, because you screwed up your immune system by putting something in it that overwrites it. Also, when you were doing all the lockdowns and you were using the excuse to work at home, sitting at the house, not go anywhere and stuff like that, wearing your mask 24/7 and things like that, guess what it is that causes your immune system to stay up to date with what's moving around out there? Being exposed to that stuff. When you haven't exposed yourself to it, now you're coming out and it is cold and flu season, people are starting to really, have a hard time readjusting to it. Some interesting stuff. You might be thinking, well, these mandates in it a year ago. That's not true. Out west, state of Washington, things like that, these mandates are just coming to a close. People are getting out. They're moving around more. And what they're finding is people are more susceptible to the common cold and other things like that. And it's causing some really extreme respiratory type issues when they do get sick, because their body is not tuned back in the way it was naturally. Now, I did not get the vaccine. I have not had any boosters, obviously, because I didn't do the initial vaccine. I've not been sick. I didn't get COVID. I didn't get the flu. I haven't had the common cold in the last 5 or 6 years, as far back as I can remember now. Why is that? Is that because I'm perfect? No. I have systemic lupus. I am at risk on things. But what I do is I wash my hands. I don't put my hands in my eyes, my fingers in my mouth. I don't get close to people. So when they talk, the spitters, the Daffy Ducks of the world, when they talk and they're spitting the whole time that they talk and all that, I don't get around people like that. I maintain a 6-foot bubble, always have. It wasn't, when people come out and say, oh yeah, social distancing. Guess what? I was social distancing before it was cool, before it was the thing to do. It was just what we were taught to do. If you remember back to, kindergarten, don't get too close to people. Don't shake hands and stick your mouth or your hand in your mouth. Don't, walk through dog crap and lick the crap off your toes. Don't go around licking on elevator buttons. Don't lick on doorknobs. Common sense stuff. Wash your hands before you eat. You get back from the store, use some sort of a sanitizing, and then wash your hands when you get home. Don't just rely on that Purell. A lot of people just jump up, I'll put some Purell on my hands, I'm good to go. and move on. No, you need to wash your hands with an antibacterial soap in hot water. And you don't need to sit there and just real quick, and done. No, you need to make sure you're washing your hands properly, the entire hand all the way up above your wrist. That way you're not making eye contact. If you're out in public, don't be grabbing stuff off the shelves and then wiping your face and all this other mess, any more than if you went outside to get chicken eggs out of the chicken coop. You don't want to then come in and just, say, oh yeah, I got these chicken eggs out straight from the chicken's butt, and come in and lick the egg or lick your hands or eat without washing your hands, because there's salmonella on those things. It's naturally occurring in the chicken's gut. It comes from the same vent that, where their poo and stuff is right next to it. So use a little common sense, folks. That's what it comes down to. But get as much food as you can. Try to get that stuff situated the best way that you can. I know the prices are getting kind of crazy out there, but what is actually the cheapest way to do things right now is actually raising your own flocks if you live in an area that you can do that in. Now, we're not talking about 1 or 2 birds. We started off, I ended up getting a dozen, then we trimmed it down to about 6. It's 5 hens and a rooster, and I've just been slowly building that up. The reason we trimmed that back so far is because out of all those 12 birds that I had ordered, all I had was 5 hens. Everything else was roosters, so kept one, butchered the rest, turned them into meat. That's something that's great to do. Everyone's talking about the shortage of poultry, turkey, chicken, and stuff like that that's happening right now. Well, what can you do to prevent that? Well, you can start raising them yourself. You can get a month's supply of feed for, 15, 16 bucks at a local feed store. Now, Walmart is a little cheaper. The reason I don't typically buy it at Walmart, though, is because I'm getting 50-pound bags at the feed store, where Walmart sells a 38-pound bag. And while it's 3 or 4 bucks cheaper, it's not as much feed. And you look at that 3 or 4 bucks and you're getting an additional 20 pounds for that, you're better to go off to the feed store. Might be wondering, well, who's the feed store around me? Well, a lot of times people like to call Tractor Supply a feed store. That's not a feed store. Now they sell feed, but they're not a wholesale feed store. You're going to have to look around and see. There's usually an outfitter or something like that in your area. If you live in the country settings, if you're in the city, you're not going to be doing chickies anyway, so don't worry about it. Now, there are people in the city who have been writing in saying that they raise pigeons. Now, I've never been one that's wanted to try squab. For those who don't know what that is, that's pigeon meat. They say it's pretty similar to dove, which is pretty similar to quail. So I say go for it if that's what you're into. But they raise pigeons on rooftops and stuff like that. Well, it's not something I would typically be on my first, like, hey, let's go have some squab tonight. I'm more of a steak person, more of a fried chicken type person. But it beats eating an earthworm out of the ground. So a lot of people talk about, well, we'll eat bugs. Well, hey, man, go ahead and eat the bugs. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let my chickens eat the bugs, and I'm going to eat the chickens. So that's kind of the way I view things. I would rather something that's going to have a little bit higher source of protein, a heck of a lot better taste, and, hasn't been crawling around and who the heck knows what. So I'm kind of particular about what my chickens do eat. So, like, I could actually take them up here to my quail pen. Sorry about that. Take them up to my quail pen and let them eat the bug stuff under the quail pen. But, them bugs are kind of moving around in quail crap, so I don't really want them eating that. So I don't let the chickens get around that much. But, hey, you do what you feel like you got to do, because it is free food. And the bugs, they're going to process that down. Now, they do get into the compost pile and they kick around in there, so there's really not a whole lot of difference, except for the fact that there is some other biomass in their grasses and straw and things like that we put in it as well. So it's not just like they're just bathing in manure the whole time. But I hope you've been having a great week. I'm going to hop off here.